The text from my son arrived at 20:47 a.m. Don't come to the wedding. Tori doesn't want you there. I've made my choice. 11 words. 26 years of being his only parent, erased in 11 words. Rain hammered against the floor, took ceiling windows of my penthouse as I read those words over and over until they burned into my skull. I'd raised Ethan alone since he was 8 years old. Single father, no help, no family. Just me and him against the world after his mother died. Every school play, every Sunday dinner, every Alaska fishing trip. I taught him everything: how to read a contract, how to swing a hammer, how to trust your gut in business and life. And this woman he'd known for 4 months had convinced him I was the enemy. The wedding invitation sat on my nightstand. Maui 6 weeks away. Destination wedding. $150,000. I'd already bought my plane ticket. Now I wasn't invited to my own son's wedding. I looked at Sarah's photo beside the invitation. I'm losing him, just like I lost Dad. I'm becoming exactly what I swore I'd never be. But my gut, the same instinct that built $1 billion real estate empire, was screaming that something was very wrong with Tori West. She had no friends, no family at our dinners. She asked too many questions about my business, my properties, my assets, and now she was isolating Ethan from everyone who loved him. I wasn't going to lose my son to self-doubt or fear of being controlling. Because what I was about to discover would prove Tori wasn't just a gold digger. She was something far more dangerous. She was my past come back to destroy my future, and my son was her weapon. If you're thinking this sounds intense, you're right. It gets worse. Subscribe to FamiliX Revenge if you want to hear how this nightmare unfolded. Trust me, you won't believe what I found. To understand how my son's fiancée became my nightmare, you need to know who she really was before she targeted him. My name is Marcus Ashford. I'm 58 years old, and I built Ashford Properties from nothing, $1 billion commercial real estate empire specializing in historic hotel conversions across the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in a working-class Seattle neighborhood where my father was a union electrician. He taught me how to wire a house, but never how to talk about feelings. When my mother died and I was 12, he became controlling, suffocating, convinced that managing every detail of my life would prevent another loss. I moved out at 18. 5 years later, he died alone, unforgiven. I've carried that guilt ever since. I married young the first time, Jessica, a waitress I got pregnant at 22. That marriage lasted 2 years before she cheated and left. Then I met Sarah when I was 27. She was a real estate attorney, sharp and funny, and the only person who ever really understood me. We married at 29 and had 11 perfect years before ovarian cancer took her when Ethan was only 8. Never dated seriously again. I told myself Ethan needed stability, not a parade of women. But the truth, I was terrified of losing someone else I loved. Ethan and I became a team. Sunday dinners every single week for 18 years. He never missed once until Tori. Alaska fishing trips every summer since he was 10. I taught him carpentry, showed him how to read people in business negotiations, passed on everything I knew about building something that lasts. We were close. Or so I thought. But somewhere around his 23rd birthday, things shifted. He turned down my offer to make him VP at Ashford Properties. Said he needed to build something himself, prove he wasn't just riding on my success. I understood that intellectually, emotionally. It felt like rejection. 4 months ago, Ethan brought a woman to Sunday dinner for the first time ever. Tori West. 29 years old, blonde, elegant in a way that screamed old money. She claimed to be an art curator at the Seattle Art Museum. She complimented my watch, my father's old Timex that I still wear despite owning a dozen Rolexes. She asked thoughtful questions about converting historic hotels and teared up when Ethan mentioned his mother. I lost my mother too, she said softly. I know that pain. Everything about her was perfect. Too perfect. My instincts started screaming the moment she walked through my door. I've made my fortune reading people, sensing when something doesn't add up. Tori's answers felt rehearsed. Her questions about my business were a little too specific, a little too interested in financial details. She touched Ethan constantly, possessive little gestures that marked territory. And when I asked casual questions about her life, her family, her friends, the answers were vague, deflecting, wrapped in just enough emotion to make me feel guilty for asking. She's lovely, I told Ethan after she left that first night. But what I meant was I don't trust her. How long have you known her? 6 weeks, he said, defensive already. But when you know, right? You said that about Mom. I had said that. And I'd been right about Sarah. But I'd also ignored my gut about Jessica and paid the price. 2 weeks later, Ethan missed Sunday dinner for the first time in 18 years. 4 weeks after that, he called to tell me he was engaged. Proposed after knowing her 2 months. When I tried to express concern about the timeline, he cut me off. I knew you'd say that. I knew you wouldn't trust my judgment. The wedding was planned for 6 weeks out. Maui destination. $150,000 budget that made my business brain itch. 8 weeks in, I invited them both to dinner to discuss the wedding costs. Brought a budget breakdown, suggested some cost-effective alternatives. Thought I was being helpful, trying to stay involved. Tori excused herself to use the bathroom. When she came back, her eyes were red. I heard everything. You clearly don't approve of me. Then she left. Ethan stared at me across the table. If you can't be happy for me, genuinely happy, then don't come to the wedding. 3 days later, that text arrived at 20:47 a.m. And I knew, with the same certainty that made me a fortune in real estate, that I had to find out who Tori West really was before it was too late. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I watched the sun come up over Seattle, that text message still glowing on my phone screen. Every response I started, I deleted. Ethan, please let me explain. Delete. I'm sorry if I hurt you. Delete. You're making a terrible mistake. Delete. Nothing felt right because I didn't know what right looked like anymore. Was I the villain here? The controlling father who couldn't let his son grow up? I'd spent 18 years teaching Ethan to trust his instincts, to read people, to protect himself. But when had my instincts become interference? When had protection become control? My own father had been exactly this way after my mother died. Managing every aspect of my life, convinced he knew better, pushing me away by holding too tight. I swore I'd never become him. And now here I was, uninvited from my son's wedding, because I couldn't hide my concerns about a woman he loved. Maybe Tori was perfect. Maybe my gut was wrong for the first time in 30 years. Maybe I was just a lonely old man who couldn't accept that his son didn't need him anymore. The photo on my desk, me and 8-year-old Ethan on our first Alaska fishing trip, both grinning, his hand in mine. When had that boy who worshipped me turned into a man who saw me as the enemy? At 6 in the morning, I called Raymond Cho. We'd been friends for 32 years, my corporate attorney, my chess partner, the closest thing I had to family besides Ethan. He answered on the second ring, voice thick with sleep. Marcus, what's wrong? Everything. Nothing. I didn't even know anymore. Ethan uninvited me from the wedding. He chose her over me. Raymond was quiet for a moment. Then he said what he always said when I was spiraling. What does your gut tell you? I stared out at the city I'd conquered, the skyline dotted with properties I owned. That something is very, very wrong with this woman. Another pause, then trust that. I'm coming over. Don't make any decisions until I get there. He arrived 20 minutes later with coffee and that calm, analytical energy that had saved me from bad deals more times than I could count. Raymond laid out 3 options like he was presenting a case. Option 1, you apologize. You attend the wedding. You smile and hope for the best. I shook my head before he even finished. My instincts were screaming too loud to ignore. Option 2, you cut him off. Let him make his own mistakes, learn his own lessons, come back to you when it falls apart. That one hurt even to hear. Option 3, you investigate her. Thoroughly. Quietly. And if you find something genuinely dangerous, you intervene with evidence, not accusations. I chose 3. Of course I chose 3. Raymond nodded like he'd known I would. I can recommend a private investigator, Diana Martinez. Former FBI, specialized in white-collar crimes. Discreet, thorough, expensive as hell. I didn't care about the cost. How expensive? $15,000 retainer, probably $40,000 total for a deep background check. I would have paid 10 times that. Do it. But Raymond wasn't done. He leaned forward, his expression serious. Marcus, there's something else. If Ethan's getting married, you need to update your estate plan regardless of your concerns about Tori. Standard protection. I knew where this was going. You want me to change my will? He nodded. Put Ethan's inheritance in a trust. 10-year structure with conditions. If the marriage lasts 5 years or more, he gets everything, proves it's real, proves she's not after money. If they divorce quickly, she walks away with nothing. It's prudent, Marcus. I felt sick even considering it. So I'm protecting him by financially controlling him without his knowledge. I'm literally becoming what he's accusing me of being. Raymond's voice was gentle but firm. He already thinks you're controlling. May as well actually protect his future while you're taking the heat for it. If you're wrong about Tori, if she's innocent and they're happy, then he gets everything when you die anyway, just structured safely. If you're right, you've saved him from financial ruin. The logic was sound. The ethics were murky. But I was already losing my son. At least this way, if everything went to hell, he'd have something left to rebuild with, draft the trust, and hire the investigator. But Ray, nobody can know about this, especially not Ethan. He squeezed my shoulder. I know. And Marcus, if you're wrong about her, if Diana finds nothing and Ethan discovers you investigated his fiancée, you'll lose him forever. Are you willing to risk that? I looked at that photo again. My little boy who'd lost his mother too young, who'd needed me to be everything, father, mother, teacher, protector. I'm already losing him. At least this way I'll know I tried everything. Raymond pulled out his phone. I'll set up a meeting with Diana for Monday morning. In the meantime, try to get some sleep. Sleep. As if that were possible. As if I could close my eyes without seeing that text message burned into the darkness. My son had made his choice. Now I had to make mine. Monday morning, I met Diana Martinez at her office, a converted industrial loft in Pioneer Square with exposed brick walls covered in case files and whiteboards. She was 44, compact and athletic, with sharp dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything in a room within seconds. Raymond had briefed her already, but she wanted to hear it from me. Tell me everything about Tori West. Notebook open, pen ready. I walked her through the timeline. 4 months. Met at a charity art auction where Ethan's bank was a sponsor. Assistant curator at the Seattle Art Museum, or so she claimed. 29 years old, elegant, sophisticated in a way that felt studied. No visible friends. No family at our Sunday dinners. Said her parents were dead, but the way she talked about it felt rehearsed. She asked a lot of questions about my business, my properties, which hotels I owned, isolating Ethan methodically, professionally, like she'd done this before. Diana took notes without reaction, then asked the questions that made my skin crawl. Does she have social media? Yes, but minimal. Instagram and Facebook, mostly photos with Ethan, nothing before 2 years ago. What does she do when she's not with your son? I realized I had no idea. Ethan had never mentioned visiting her workplace or meeting her colleagues. Has she asked directly about your assets or estate plan? Not directly. But her questions always circled back to business, properties. What would happen to everything when I retired? Diana closed her notebook and looked at me with something like sympathy. Mr. Ashford. Rushed timeline, destination wedding, isolation tactics, excessive interest in finances, no visible personal history. These are patterns. I've seen this before. My stomach dropped. You think she's done this to other men? Her expression was carefully neutral. I think we need to find out who Tori West really is. I'll start with public records. Identity verification, employment confirmation, financial history, social media forensics. Then I'll go deeper, interview former associates, check for prior marriages, criminal records, name changes. If there's something to find, I'll find it. I asked how long it would take. 3 weeks for a complete background, but I'd have preliminary findings in 1 week. I told her I needed it done in 6 weeks before the wedding. You'll have everything you need to make a decision. And Mr. Ashford, if I find nothing, if she's clean, you'll have peace of mind. Either way, you'll know the truth. That's all I was asking for. The truth. 1 week later, Diana called me at 10 p.m. I was still at the office, unable to focus on work, going through the motions of running an empire, while my personal life disintegrated. I need to give you the first report. Her tone told me she'd found something. Tori West was employed at the Seattle Art Museum. That part checked out. But her employment only dated back 18 months. Before that, nothing. No employment history anywhere in Washington state. No college degree verified. She'd claimed a UW art history degree, but the university had no record of a Victoria West or Tori West graduating in any year. And her social media accounts, all created within the past 2 years. No digital footprint before age 27. People don't just appear fully formed at 27, Mr. Ashford. She's either using an identity that's not her birth name, or she scrubbed her entire digital history. I'm running facial recognition against older databases and checking name variations. Give me 48 hours. I hung up and sat in the dark of my office, city lights glittering outside. My instincts had been right. Tori West wasn't who she claimed to be. The vindication felt hollow, though, because being right meant Ethan was in real danger, and he wouldn't believe me without proof. Solid, undeniable proof. 2 days later, Diana showed up at my office at 10 p.m. with a physical folder. When evidence is serious enough, she delivers it in person. She sat across from my desk and slid 2 photographs toward me. One was recent, Tori at a gallery opening with Ethan, blonde and polished. The other was from 2012, a teenage girl at some formal event, brunette, wearing a debutante dress. Same woman, different hair, different name on the caption, Victoria Westfield. Born October 15, 1995, Seattle. Father Richard Westfield, owner of Westfield Hotels boutique chain. Mother Catherine Westfield, socialite. Only child. The name hit me like a fist. Westfield Hotels. I'd bought 3 of their properties in 2012 during the recession. Prime locations. Historic buildings perfect for conversion. Good business. Smart acquisitions. I'd never thought about what happened to the owners afterward. Diana slid another document across the desk. A newspaper article dated July 2012. Westfield Hotels declares bankruptcy after Ashford Properties acquisition. My mouth went dry. I'd destroyed her family. Not intentionally, it was market conditions, legal business, the natural cycle of competition and opportunity. But to her, I was the man who'd taken everything. Richard Westfield died in 2018, liver cirrhosis from alcoholism. Catherine Westfield died in 2020. Diana paused, and I knew what was coming would be worse. Suicide. Jumped from a hotel balcony. I could barely form the question. Which hotel? Her voice was gentle but unrelenting. The Ashford Grand. Your flagship property downtown. It was the original Westfield flagship hotel before you converted it. The room tilted. Her mother had jumped from my building, from what used to be her family's crown jewel, and now Victoria Westfield, disguised as Tori West, was marrying my son. She's not after money. She's after revenge. Through Ethan, she's going to destroy him to hurt me. Diana nodded. That's my working theory. But I need to prove intent. Show this as active deception, not just a tragic coincidence. Give me more time. I'll find everything. After she left, I sat alone holding that photograph of teenage Victoria Westfield at her debutante ball. She'd been 17 when I bought her father's hotels. 17 when her world collapsed. And she'd spent 12 years planning revenge on the man she blamed for killing her parents. My son was just the weapon she'd chosen to destroy me. 4 days later, Diana called me to her office. Her whiteboard was covered with timelines, photographs, and colored strings connecting different pieces of information like a detective show. But this wasn't fiction. This was my son's life hanging in the balance. She walked me through what she'd found, and with each revelation, the nightmare deepened. After her parents died in 2020, Victoria Westfield disappeared from Seattle society completely. No trace, no social media, no public records. Then in May 2021, a woman named Tori West appeared in Portland. New hair color, blonde instead of brunette, new city, new identity, and a new target, Alexander Chen, 28 years old, son of a tech CEO. They married after a 3-month whirlwind courtship. Divorced 8 months later. Victoria walked away with a $600,000 settlement. But here's what made my blood run cold. Diana had dug into Alexander Chen's father. In 2010, Chen Tech had outbid Westfield Hotels on a prime Portland property. Richard Westfield had been furious about losing that deal. It was in old business journals. Victoria hadn't just married a wealthy young man. She'd married the son of someone who'd competed against her father. Then came marriage number 2. David Morrison, 31, son of a hedge fund manager. Same pattern. Whirlwind romance, quick marriage, 11-month divorce with a $1.2 million settlement. And Morrison's father, his hedge fund had shorted Westfield Hotels stock right before the bankruptcy, making a fortune off her family's collapse. Diana stepped back from the whiteboard. She's not just a gold digger, Marcus. She's systematically destroying the sons of men she blames for her family's destruction. 2 practice runs, refining her method, learning how to maximize settlements. Alexander Chen and David Morrison were warm-ups. You're the main event? The man who actually bought the properties that ended it all. I felt sick. How much has she made total? She checked her notes. $1.8 million across both marriages. Enough to live comfortably, but not enough to stop This isn't about money anymore. It's about revenge, and your son is her perfect weapon, because hurting him hurts you in a way money never could. The calculation, the patience, the cold precision of it. She'd been planning this for years, finding the right targets, executing her plan, moving to the next one. And Ethan, brilliant, naive Ethan who'd never had a serious relationship, was exactly the kind of target she needed. Young enough to be swept away, connected enough to hurt me, trusting enough to believe her performance. Diana pulled up something on her laptop, an archived web page from the Internet Archive. I found a blog post, written by Victoria Westfield in 2019, 6 months before her mother's suicide. It was deleted, but the archive caught it. She turned the screen toward me, and I read words that made my chest tighten. The post was titled, "One Business Destroys Families, My Father's Story." It detailed the Westfield Hotel's collapse, named me specifically Marcus Ashford, ruthless developer who preyed on struggling family businesses. It described her father's alcoholism, her mother's depression, losing their home, being pulled from private school, the social humiliation. And then the final paragraph, Marcus Ashford built his empire on the graves of companies like my father's. He's never had to answer for the families he destroyed. Maybe someday, karma will find him. Through those he loves most, the way he took everyone I loved from me. Through those he loves most. I read it aloud, my voice hollow. She wrote this in 2019, before her mother died, before she changed her name, before she met Ethan. Deanna's expression was grim. She's been planning revenge for at least 5 years. This entire relationship with your son, the art auction meeting, the whirlwind romance, the rushed wedding, it's all calculated. She's been hunting for someone like Ethan, or maybe hunting for Ethan specifically. My business decision 12 years ago, legal, standard, just smart acquisition during a recession, had created a monster who spent years plotting to destroy my son. The blog proves intent. But Diana shook her head. It proves she was angry and grieving in 2019. She could claim it was emotional venting, that she's moved on, that she really does love him now. We need current evidence showing active deception. Her actions right now. Not her feelings 5 years ago. She was right, but we were running out of time. I told her to keep digging. Find anything that proved Victoria was still executing her revenge plan. As I left her office, I couldn't stop thinking about that blog post. Through those he loves most. My son. My only family. The one person I'd kill or die for. And she'd chosen him with surgical precision. I tried calling Ethan that night, blocked. Sent a text asking if we could talk. Read receipt showed he'd seen it. No response. I drove to his apartment, knocked. He didn't answer. Through the door, I heard him tell someone, Tori, probably. It's my dad. I'm not dealing with him tonight. I stood in that hallway listening to my son refuse to see me, and I understood with perfect clarity that Victoria Westfield had already won the first battle. She'd isolated him completely. Now I had to win the war before she destroyed him entirely. The next day, I signed the documents that made me exactly what Ethan accused me of being. Raymond's office, conference room, estate papers spread across mahogany. Ethan's inheritance, everything I'd built, nearly $1 billion, moved into a 10-year trust with conditions he didn't know about and hadn't agreed to. If his marriage lasted 5 years, he'd get it all. Proof that Victoria was real, that I'd been wrong. But if they divorced quickly, she'd walk away with nothing. My hand shook signing my name. If he finds out before I can explain this with evidence, there's no coming back from it. Raymond's expression was sympathetic but firm. If she destroys him financially, and you did nothing, there's no coming back from that either. Pick your poison, Marcus. I'd rather you be hated and him be safe than loved and him be ruined. I signed. It felt like betrayal. It felt like the only choice I had. 3 days later, Angela called me. Ethan's childhood best friend. They'd been inseparable since 5th grade. But now she was crying on the phone saying he wouldn't return her calls. She'd gone to his apartment and Tori had answered the door, smiled sweetly, and said, "Ethan's busy. I'll let him know you stopped by." Then closed the door in her face. 17 years of friendship shut down in 10 seconds. Mr. Ashford, that's not the Ethan I know. He's defensive, isolated, convinced anyone who questions Tori is against him. Something's really wrong. I asked her to tell Ethan something if he contacted her. Tell him I love him. That everything I'm doing is to protect him, not control him. Angela's voice was sad. He won't believe that right now, Mr. Ashford. She's convinced him you're the enemy. I knew. God, I knew. Then the text that changed everything. From Ethan. Wedding moved up to 4 weeks from now. Tori wants to start our life together sooner. Don't bother replying. 4 weeks, I'd just lost 2 weeks of investigation time. I called Diana immediately. She knows. She either suspects or knows you're investigating. I found deleted browser searches on her laptop through forensic software. Private investigator Washington State. A fastest marriage license processing. How to contest a will. She's panicking. Trying to lock this down before you can stop it. The will. Somehow she'd found out about the trust changes. Probably Ethan mentioned something without realizing. And now she was weaponizing it, telling him I was controlling him from beyond the grave. Deanna's voice cut through my spiral. Marcus, I have enough evidence. Her real identity. The previous marriages, the blog post. It's time. We confront her before the wedding with everything we've found. If we present it right, Ethan will have to face the truth. I asked the question that terrified me. Will he believe it? Or will he choose her anyway? Silence on the line. Then Diana said what I already knew. This confrontation will either save your son or lose him forever. There's no middle ground anymore. I told her to set up the meeting. One shot. That's all I had. One chance to save Ethan from a woman who'd spent 5 years planning to destroy him. Do it. It's time to end this. I sent Ethan a single email. Professional, emotionless, business tone. Estate planning discussion required. You and Tori should both attend. Tuesday 2 p.m. my office. No pleading. No emotion. Just a meeting request he couldn't easily refuse because it sounded official. He replied with one word, fine. Tuesday arrived. Diana and I set the trap. Evidence folders on the desk, photos sequenced, her laptop loaded with documents. I'd rehearsed staying calm 100 times. Raymond's last words echoed in my head. Present facts, not accusations. Let the evidence speak. Lose control, you lose everything. The doorbell rang at exactly 2 p.m. I opened the door to find my son standing there with his arm around her. Victoria Westfield, wearing the face of Tori West. She looked confident, almost amused, like she was indulging a difficult old man. Ethan looked defensive, his jaw set, ready for battle. Neither of them knew the war was already over. They sat across from my desk. I introduced Deanna as my estate consultant, which was technically true. Offered coffee, they declined. The air felt electric with tension. I started with the simplest question, voice steady and calm. Tori, your full name is Victoria Ann Westfield. Is that correct? I watched her face flicker just for a second, the mask slipped. Then she recovered. That was my maiden name, yes. I go by Tori West professionally. I slid the first folder across the desk to Ethan. These are public records. Birth certificate, parents' death certificates, bankruptcy filings. Your fiancée is the daughter of Richard and Catherine Westfield, owners of Westfield Hotels. In 2012, I purchased 3 of their properties during bankruptcy. Her father died in 2018 from alcoholism. Her mother committed suicide in 2020 by jumping from the Ashford Grand, which used to be the Westfield flagship hotel. Ethan opened the folder, confusion spreading across his face. Tori, what is this? Victoria's composure was cracking. Ethan, I can explain. But I wasn't finished. I slid the second folder. After your parents died, Victoria, you married twice. Alexander Chen in 2021, divorced 8 months later with a $600,000 settlement. David Morrison in 2023, divorced 11 months later with $1.2 million. Both men's fathers were business competitors of your father's hotel chain. Both marriages followed the same pattern as this one. Whirlwind courtship, expensive wedding, quick divorce. Ethan's hands shook as he read the marriage licenses, the divorce decrees. You were married. Twice, you never told me. His voice broke. Victoria stood, pacing. Those were mistakes. Before I met you. They don't mean anything. Diana added the final piece, her voice professional and cold. This is an archived blog post from 2019. Written under your real name, Victoria Westfield. Quit, maybe someday karma will find him through those he loves most. Ethan read it. The color drained from his face. He looked up at Victoria with an expression I'd never seen before. Betrayal so complete it looked like physical pain. You wrote this about my father. 3 years before we met. Victoria's mask shattered completely. She stopped pacing, stopped pretending. Her voice came out raw and furious. He killed them! Your father destroyed my family! My dad begged for mercy and Marcus ignored him. We lost everything, our home, my college fund, our entire lives! My father drank himself to death, And my mother jumped from Heist building because of what he did. I kept my voice quiet, controlled. My business decision destroyed your family. I'm sorry for that. Truly, I never knew the human cost. But using my son to settle a score, making him fall in love with you while planning to betray him, that's unforgivable. Whatever my sins, he's innocent. Victoria's eyes blazed. You don't understand what it's like losing everything because some rich man decided your family's legacy was a good investment opportunity. Ethan stood slowly. His voice was barely a whisper. Did you ever love me? Even a little? Or was it always about him? Victoria turned to him, desperate. At first it was revenge. Yes! I wanted him to feel what he took from me. But then I fell in love with you. I swear, Ethan, it became real. Ethan backed away from her like she was toxic. How can I believe anything you say? You lied about your name. You were married twice. You planned this. Every moment, the art auction, the romance, everything, was it all just performance? She reached for him. He pulled away. Get out. His voice was dead, empty. Ethan, please. He raised his voice, something I'd rarely heard. Get out. Just leave. Please. Just go. Victoria looked between us, me sitting calmly at my desk, Ethan destroyed and distant. She pulled off her engagement ring and dropped it on my desk with a sharp click. You're a monster. You destroyed my family, and now you've ruined my one chance at happiness. I hope you're satisfied. I met her eyes. I'm not. I wish none of this had happened. But I won't apologize for protecting my son. She left. The door closed. And for 10 seconds, Ethan and I sat in silence so heavy I could barely breathe. Then he looked at me, and I saw something I'd never wanted to see. My son looking at me like a stranger. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I answered honestly. Would you have believed me without proof? More silence. Then, quietly, no. I would have chosen her. After Victoria left, Ethan and I stared at the engagement ring on my desk. Neither of us knew what to say. The silence felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Finally, he spoke without looking at me. You were right. About everything. She was using me. I wanted to say something comforting, but what comfort was there? I'm sorry. Even when I'm right, I hate seeing you in pain. He looked up, surprised. You're apologizing. You saved me from marrying a woman who was planning to destroy me. I met his eyes. I also investigated your fiancé without telling you. Changed my will without your knowledge, and nearly pushed you away forever. Being right doesn't make those choices feel good. He sat back, processing. Then he said the words I'd been dreading. I need time. Away from Seattle, from you, from all of this. I need to figure out who I am outside of trying to prove my independence from you. It hurt. God, it hurt. But I understood. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready. He stood to leave, paused at the door. Thank you. For trusting your instincts even when I didn't trust you. Then he was gone, and I was alone again. 6 weeks passed. Work continued. Raymond checked in daily. The penthouse felt enormous without Sunday dinners. Then an email arrived from Peru. The subject line was blank. I almost didn't open it, terrified of what it might say. But I did. Dad, I'm in Cusco, about to hike the Inca Trail. Seemed appropriate. Ancient path. Forced perspective. I'm sorry I didn't trust your instincts. You were protecting me, not controlling me. I see that now. I need more time to figure myself out. But I wanted you to know I'm okay. And I'm sorry. And I love you. Ethan, I sat at my desk and cried for the first time since Sarah's funeral 18 years ago. Relief, grief, love, hope, all of it pouring out at once. I wrote back immediately, kept it simple. Take all the time you need. I'm proud of you, love, Dad. 6 months later, we met in Alaska. Our traditional fishing spot. The place we'd been going since he was 10. He looked different, older, weathered by travel, quieter. We fished in comfortable silence for an hour before either of us spoke. Then Ethan said something that surprised me. I've been thinking about Victoria. About whether she actually loved me at the end. I asked if it mattered. He thought about it. Yeah. Because if it was real, if she genuinely fell for me, then I broke her heart too. That makes me part of the cycle. Her father hurt, she hurt you through me, I hurt her. Where does it stop? I'd thought about this a lot in the months alone. Maybe it stops when someone chooses to break the pattern. You didn't take revenge on her. You walked away. That's different. We cast our lines in silence. Then he mentioned Angela wanted to set him up with her teacher friend. Someone boringly normal. He said with a slight smile. The first I'd seen in months. That I need another year of therapy first. But maybe after that, if you promise not to run a background check. I laughed. Actually laughed. I promise to try not to. He smiled wider. That's probably the best I'm going to get. The sun set over the mountains. Then he said, I'm glad you fought for me. Even when I hated you for it. My throat tightened. I'd do it again, every time. That's what fathers do. Victoria Westfield lost everything to my business decision 12 years ago. I can't undo that. But she turned that pain into a weapon aimed at my son, and I can't forgive that either. 3 families destroyed by business and revenge, hers, her victims, and nearly ours. The cycle ends here, with Ethan choosing healing over hatred. With me learning when to hold on and when to let go. Being a father means making impossible choices and living with the consequences. That's not the satisfying kind of victory, but it's the only kind that matters. If this story made you think about family, trust, or the cost of protecting the people you love, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe to FamiliX Revenge. Sharing these experiences helps more than you know. Thanks for listening.